It don't make no difference to me, baby. Everybody had to fight to be free. You see, you don't have to live like a refugee. It is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter.
Now, how uncool am I if I don't know where that's from? Do you just make that up in thin air? Or did you?
I'm just spitting verses.
Really? Spitting verses that you just came up with? You just wrote that?
No, that's Tom Petty.
Oh, okay. I know him.
Yeah. That's good.
We
should have like a little quiz every week, but it wouldn't work out so well for you.
I don't know about that. I mean, you could go, go ahead and look up a World Series, and I'll tell you who won it against who and how many. Well,
that's different, but yeah.
Oh, okay. So if you're good at it, like music, then it doesn't.
All right.
Go back to that 1916 World Series, and I can tell you everything. Go back.
Well,
all right.
That's good. And we all have different interests, and that's what makes America great.
Okay, if you say so, yeah.
If it were like me, if everybody were like me, that might be really awesome for a little while, but I think we'd get bored.
Yeah, I think a bunch of clones of me would get bored very quickly. That's what I think.
Oh, so how are you this week, Andrew?
Well, I'm okay. It's been, I should say, it has been a long week of work. Not only on what we're doing, but all the other projects we're doing and all the other things going on. Mm-hmm. It just seems like week after week we get busier and busier, which I'm not complaining about, but it's just the way it is moving forward. Every week we got more people bringing things to us, more people following us, more stories to write about that are sometimes not the most pleasant. I'd like to report good news on occasion.
It will happen.
It will not happen on this show, though. I'm going to say that.
Not today. Not this today. Show here today. This episode.
Not this episode.
No. But
now, I've said that for a lot of weeks now.
Future episodes, I tell you, once people start getting like-minded people into city councils.
Once the tide turns,
that's right.
There'll be good things to report. Until then, folks, it's all hell. General Sherman said, war is hell, and let me tell you something. With local governments, we're in a war. No other way to put it. A war without weapons.
Right. And we've got good things happening in Crystal, good things happening in Oak Grove, and
not a whole lot in the other 800.
There's some cities with making some progress, though, and so if
there are, it's slow and painful, but that is true. And there's people that are waking up. The good news is that I feel like a groundswell is coming. I think you and I are having a lot to do with it, if I can pat ourselves on the back. And I think this podcast is reaching more and more folks every single week, and there's just no question about it, folks. I mean, the numbers are in, and we are rising rapidly.
Yes, which is good. We've got some good news coming up. Not in this show, but soon. Soon it will all be revealed. Wow. We've spent a lot of our time looking up, from our beginning 9 years ago, looking up things that affected city governments, and we dug into some of the groups and the policies that affected local governments, but like from the outside, like bigger government, bigger nationwide movements, and we see it today. I mean, Tobacco 21, we see it with things like the Complete Streets, we see it in things like
the Fair Vote would be another one. We see a lot of them are non-governmental organizations or 501c3s.
Right.
However, they're classified. A lot of them are funded by one or two sugar daddies somewhere because contribution limits don't apply to outside groups like that.
Right.
527 groups. That's 527 is their tax ID. So you've seen a rise of, I would say we've seen a big rise of that since, say, the 90s. Mm-hmm. It was kind of hard to find a lot of NGOs and things like that if you go back 50, 60 years. But things that affect public policy in or out of lawmaking has been so on the rise. And I'll tell you what, Jay, let me just to set up what we're talking about here.
Yes.
When I first stumbled on, you and I guess, maybe discovered it around the same time, what we're about to talk about and kind of venture into.
Right.
It's something I didn't want to believe. Because I believe, and I'm taking this a little bit above and beyond our scope here, I believe that there is a push in this world toward one world government. It's very slow. But there's the old saying, if you never knew freedom, you can't lose it. If you never understood, we have people alive today who their whole lives have paid an income tax.
Yes.
Their whole lives have been with the public school system. Their whole lives have been, they don't know nobody, hardly anybody's alive today that was an adult before Social Security. We don't know that world anymore.
Right.
And the world's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And things are getting more multinational. They're getting more global. And the idea that we're drifting, that our ability to change or stop something is getting more difficult and more difficult and more difficult and more difficult.
Yes.
So before we get into what we're about to get into, there was a time I didn't want to believe that this was the truth.
Right.
But not only have I come to believe it, and it's not a conspiracy. I've been charged with being a conspiracy theorist before.
And I was going to mention that.
Yeah.
We get that not all the time, but we did under the old crystal.
Yeah, we get it enough from the ignorant folks or the folks who agree with this agenda and don't care how it's implemented.
Right.
Everything we're going to tell you today is from government documents, or it's from the website of the group we're about to mention. It's not something that's difficult to find. It's not something we made up. And what you're going to hear is a lot of what we hear locally, maybe not in the exact same language. But when we talk about how you see the same thing in every comprehensive plan, okay,
it's not by accident,
and it didn't originate here in Minnesota.
No.
Okay, it didn't originate here in the United States.
Nope.
And it really goes back about 30 years, I would say. Prior to Rio in 1992, and we have come to a point now where this has to be met head on. And we can't keep tiptoeing around what's really going on out there.
Right.
We can't, I think there's a reluctance of some for some reason, and I can't, maybe it's the fear of being called a conspiracy theorist, an alarmist, a nut job. I don't know. But doesn't there seem to be doesn't there seem to be a lack of calling this what it is?
Yes.
And the media blackout on this? Well, we're about to talk about, I challenge, has the nightly, did Tom Brokaw or Peter Jennings ever do a special on what we're about to say?
I would even go a step further. CNN, Fox News, any of them.
Fox maybe is an exception with a guy like Glenn Beck.
Yeah, well, he's not
on
Fox
there anymore.
Right.
But he was.
Right.
He may be the only one I can really think of that talked about this.
Yeah.
No, we've kept the audience in suspense long enough now, Jay. I'm setting you up here. What are we talking about?
The rise of soccer. And it's a terrible thing. Terrible thing, people.
I thought it was football.
We're talking ICLEI.
Oh, boy.
Local Governments for Sustainability.
Oh, isn't it? What was it originally called?
Oh,
ICLEI. What did that stand? Hold on. What did that stand? Hold on.
International Council for Local Environmental
Initiatives.
That's it. Yes.
which they're nothing of. Let's be honest, they don't do that at all.
Well, they are international. They got that part down.
Okay, they got that, but they've got
initiatives.
There's no local environmental initiatives. No, not whatsoever.
But and this group, I mean, their whole goal is to take people. We've talked about circumventing legislatures to put things in at the local level. That's what this group exists to do. That is their main purpose: to go to the local level, to go to mayors, to go to city councils, and implement cap and trade, environmental type legislation without having the buy-in at the state level, the federal level.
Yeah, circumventing our Constitution.
Right.
Our private property rights, due process rights. This is a group that knows no boundaries, knows no laws. I would argue that what they do is far bigger than that, though.
Right. And you know, you look at like the map on their website, which is ICLEI.
Do we have to?
ICLEI.org. For those of you that want to follow along at home, like with Bill Cosby's picture pages.
Or with, Herb Carneal used to say with the Twins, if you're scoring at home, that was a 6-4-3 double play. I was probably the only one doing that.
I think I did once in a while, but... there may only be 4 cities in Minnesota that subscribe to or have membership in ICLEI. Yeah, it's an actual organization that you can have membership in.
Take a guess on who the 4 cities are.
Well, we know Minneapolis and St. Paul. I mean, that's right on.
Or as we call them, North Korea and East Germany.
Right. They're first in line with their hand up. Duluth, not far behind.
Never.
And surprisingly, Rochester.
Not shocked at that.
Yeah.
I've read their comprehensive plan.
Well, if that's the case, then Grand Rapids should be a member too.
I think ICLEI wrote their comprehensive plan.
Well, I think you're right, and we'll get into that later.
Now, being a member,
right?
Remember, they pay dues to be a part of this. So,
i.e., your tax dollars.
Yeah. So, if you're in one of those 4 cities, your tax dollars are going to ICLEI directly.
Directly.
They may be indirectly somewhere else, but directly in those 4 cities, which are 4 of the largest cities in this state.
And I would like to say thank you to states like Wyoming, to states like Vermont, Mississippi, that decide North Dakota, South Dakota, West Virginia, South Carolina. We don't want ICLEI in our state at all. They haven't. The city councils have not joined. There's no members. But they're still getting affected by it.
Right. Let's not be deceived by them not being members.
Right.
Doesn't mean that some of the policies never came from there. Now, let's back up just 1 second here. ICLEI. Now, I've been told that believing Agenda 21 exists makes me a nut.
What kind?
No, funny. We just had Rio plus 25. If this is a conspiracy, why are they meeting to talk about their progress? That makes a little sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So,
like the Easter Bunny asking, do they believe in us yet? I don't know.
And we know the tenets. Yeah. We know the tenets of Agenda 21. I want to bring up Agenda 21 because it matters here to ICLEI. ICLEI is the arm that is locally trying to get Agenda 21 implemented.
Right.
There's other organizations that lobby the federal government and the state government. We all know who the heck. You can go find who they are. But this is the other way around. And Agenda 21, if we remember, the world, I always say we changed in 1913, and I think we changed in 1992.
Right.
1992, the United States became a signatory of Agenda 21. Republicans and Democrats praised it.
Yes, they did.
Including former President Bush Sr.
Yeah.
Including Republicans in the House, certainly Democrats in the House.
Yeah.
You can go to YouTube. Nancy Pelosi makes her eyes blinked once or twice, I think, in a speech that she gave on the House floor, praising Agenda 21. So again, if it's a conspiracy, I don't know why we signed on to it. And Agenda 21 basically says, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not quoting this exactly, that we cannot live anymore the way we've been living. It is not, I hate to say do I have to say the S word?
Oh boy.
I'm not talking about I'm not talking about that word. Sustainable. Is that what I want? Sustainable development. It's where that term came from. That basically what Agenda 21 calls for, and I'm going to put this in layman's terms, not the inside BS you hear from them. Worldwide socialism, open borders. It calls for rolling back of our standard of living, I would argue, all in the name of equality and, environmental regulations and so on and so forth. Now, that is sort of the basis of it.
Right.
And from that point forward, in 1993, President Clinton appointed a Council on Sustainability. It's actually an executive order. June of 1993. Go look it up. I don't know the number off the top of my head. Doesn't matter. I'm sure, J.O., you'll Google that while I'm talking.
Sure.
But he made up a council to implement Agenda 21. Now, this act in and of itself is illegal and unconstitutional because President Clinton, whatever you think of him, I'm not here to debate him, basically came up with a council to how to implement something that isn't law. And many of the members of this council were people who crafted Agenda 21 policy. Jonathan Lash from the World Resources Institute. There was a group called Zero Population Growth that was a part of this.
Right.
That's basically an abortion on demand group. And says, there's too many people, we got to start killing people. And they were represented in our name on this Council of Sustainability.
Yeah, Executive Order 12852.
Oh, that's what I thought. I thought it was 5-3.
You were close. Yeah.
So, from that point, ICLEI, which was actually created before Rio, it was created in 1990, made it the mission to, quote-unquote, voluntarily, now that's, as we all know in government, a tricky word, to get local governments to do these things. But is that really what they're advocating?
Yeah, I mean, voluntary. I mean, anytime government gets involved in anything, there is some arm twisting that goes on.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. If it's voluntary, why am I paying dues to do something?
Right.
I mean, why do I have to pay to volunteer?
Oh, so yeah, and you talk about Agenda 21, and that's a term where people start to get all weird, and they start to throw out the conspiracy theory talk. And yeah, technically Agenda 21 has come and gone, but now we're looking at Agenda 2030, which it's just pretty much a lot of the same stuff wrapped up. It was updated at one of the Rio conferences, and I mean, you can go right out to sustainabledevelopment.un.org, and find all this stuff. So it's not some sort of conspiracy theory. It's out there on credible websites. It's on their websites. You can find Crazy Town out there if you're looking for it, but you can also find, it's a document that'll put you to sleep within 5 minutes. Yes. But, if you read 5 minutes a night, you'll have it read within 6 years or so, and you'll have a better understanding.
The only thing that puts me to sleep faster is a Vikings game.
What?
Oh, goodness. Vikings are bedtime.
They are 4-2,
Oh, are they?
They're doing good.
Let's see what they end up.
Yeah. I'm sure that they will...
It's hard to play with both hands around your neck all the time. It's really difficult.
I'm sure that they will do just fine, and they'll come about 2 minutes shy of going into the playoffs. So
it'll be another...
Yeah.
Year like it's been.
Yeah, exactly. But I'll still watch because I'm an idiot.
You go ahead.
Yeah. Back to ICLEI. So yeah, it's been around since the 90s, well, since 1990, and it has made its goal to get infiltrated into as many local governments as possible. But it's done that, I mean, all over the United States, all over Canada, all over the world. I mean, if you look at their map, it has cities all over the world. It doesn't spare a single continent. Strangely enough, nobody in the Middle East or Northern Africa seems to be on it.
Don't they believe in sustainable development over there?
I don't know. Nobody in there's not one city in Russia, or it looks like a lot of the Soviet bloc.
Goodness.
Countries they're not participating.
Well, that's not good. They're destroying the earth then.
Well.
I mean, the Earth's only going to survive if we listen to these people.
So Moscow, Russia might not be affiliated with ICLEI, but Moscow, Idaho is. And I think that's far more ironic, and I enjoy that.
So think about this. A former communist country is not participating in this.
Right.
That shows you how much tilt the world's gone. Because I've always said that the remnants of communism have joined the environmental movement as a way to destroy capitalism. Because I think that's also a part of this. To implement socialism, which is, again, wealth redistribution, which is, if you read a lot of what ICLEI talks about, and again, wealth redistribution, I don't know what that has to do with the environment. To me, they aren't even close to the same issues. Eradicating poverty, which find me a government program that's done that successfully. I'd like to meet it.
Right.
But the point is that you'll find a lot of that kind of language in what they push. And it's sort of like, okay, wait a minute. ICLEI is there to have local governments for environmental initiatives, and they're off pushing redistribution of wealth.
Right.
So what they're doing is they're taking the socialist agenda, and they're using the environment as a way to implement socialism. Taking away your freedom, taking away your choice, taking away your private property rights. Circumventing the founding documents.
Right.
So, so that, again, read, I tell people this. If you believe that Jason and I are whack jobs, go to their websites and read what they write. We didn't write it. Okay? So, look what it says. The 3 E's of Agenda 21. One of them is equality. However you want to describe it.
We've talked about that a bunch.
Yes.
Equal housing, equal transportation.
Yes. Everybody has the right to a house or the right to... and I do think that there are basic human rights have gotten blown so crazy what we consider that today, or what some groups do. I mean, read some of you talk about weirdos running. Go look at the Minneapolis elections right now. Okay? I mean, there are candidates who think housing at a certain price is an absolute fundamental human right.
Right. Not just that there are houses available.
No,
it has to be affordable. It has to be at a certain price.
By whose definition?
Right.
So, I mean, the whack jobs are 10 miles away from where we are, or less, So, again, that's how far we've drifted as a world. And if you look at the things that are being pushed, especially I'll go back to things like Kyoto,
right,
which isn't, I don't know that that's directly tied with this, although it wouldn't surprise me. Look at how the third world countries were exempt from those environmental standards. Now, if this is about the environment, why does it matter who's doing the polluting?
Right.
If pollution's going on, what does it matter if it happens in Canada or the United States or Japan or China or India or Timbuktu or in a hut somewhere in Sudan? What does it matter?
Right, it doesn't.
But it was aimed at the industrialized world, and we've seen these things like the Paris Accords were another great example where one of the objections President Trump had was that there is I can't remember what it's called, but there's some sort of fund set up that is basically aiding the poor countries to get environmentally friendly. Well, there's no accountability with that. We cut $1 billion check to some dictator in, some country somewhere. Where's the accountability that that's going to be spent on solar panels? Mm-hmm. No, the person will probably take it and build up their military with it.
It's true. I mean, in a lot of third world countries, that would happen.
Yes, and if you read the president's, if you actually read what he said rather than the two snidbits that the media picks out or the tweet that was taken out of proportion, you'll actually see a very well-articulated argument as to why this was a bad choice for the United States.
Right.
So I think that, but I think things like the Paris Accords, again, are byproducts of what we see in something like ICLEI.
Oh, I would agree with that 100%. I mean, we look at the kind of agendas that they put out, and they even use the word agendas, urban agendas they call them, and that's not an accident either that they're using the similar terminology. There's sustainable cities, low carbon cities, resource efficient and productive cities, resilient cities, biodiverse city. That's a clever play on words there. Wow. Points for that. Smart city, eco-mobile city, healthy, happy, and inclusive communities, sustainable local...
Inclusive.
Yes.
Now, what does that tell you? What's that got to do with...
Equality.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sustainable local economy and procurement, and sustainable city-region cooperation. Oh, so we're talking about regional development, cooperating with cities to get sustainability. So under all of these, I mean, they have different amounts of information, but as far as things go, I mean, you see the same keywords popping up. You see sustainability, you see resilient city, and we'll talk more about that later. Smart city, which has to do with the SMART goals, which has to do with smart growth.
As opposed to dumb growth.
Right. And smart growth being another organization, a national organization pushing for your mixed-use development and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, your
transit-oriented development. Yeah.
And the whole restricting where you can live. And I think we're getting to a point where, in the United States, 28% of all land is owned by the federal government here in this country. Now, you add to that what state, local governments own. That in and of itself, there was a time where there was this wanting to get it off the government, wanting it in private hands.
Right.
What's happened? What's turned it around? How did we go from the Homestead Act or the acts under President Jackson back in the 1830s? How did we go from that to government owning like half the land of this country and saying, no, it's off limits to you?
They own, 90% of Nevada? The federal government?
They own a good chunk of Wyoming, too.
Wyoming.
I was just there in the summer. The western states in particular. And the government, if I understand the law correctly, can come in and the EPA can declare something endangered and they can close it without legislation. They can close it to private use.
Right.
So it's pretty scary. I mean, to me, restricting where I can live that much is an attack on private property rights. Okay, right. Nobody's walking into my house and taking something, but you're saying my house can't be over here.
Right.
But as more and more people are here, as we continue to erase our borders, as we continue to, I would say, live longer and things like that, we're going to get more crowded because limits are placed on where we can be. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, you want to hear another knockoff group of this?
Yeah.
How about, did you mention the Compact of Mayors? It's a relatively new group.
compact of mayors. It sounds like a lot of mayors in a very close space.
Well, yeah. Well, here's it's a global coalition of leaders, city leaders, addressing climate change by cutting greenhouse emissions. Now, how does a city implement that? I'm curious.
I don't know.
Oh, guess one of our buddies, Mike Bloomberg, one of the co-founders.
Of course.
Along with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon.
Yes.
Whatever. Let's see. Mayor Anne Hidalgo. I wonder what she's the mayor of.
That sounds familiar.
Paris.
Ah, yes.
All getting together to do just another one of these things. The UN Climate Summit in 2014 announced the commitment of 228 cities to cut 13 gigatons of carbon emissions by 2040. I got an idea. How about we cut 13 gigatons of government spending by 2050?
I would like that.
Well, let's meet that challenge. Oh, and of course it was praised by our unemployed former president.
Yes.
And the unemployed former vice president, who probably talked everybody to the point where carbon knocked over a few buildings.
Right. Well, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, looking at like the low carbon city, they have these programs like Green Climate Cities program, which it's climate change mitigation or reducing greenhouse gas emissions, building on 20 years of ICLEI experience, and it has 3 phases: analyze, act, and accelerate. It's not enough to act. You have to accelerate. You have to make it happen faster, because once people figure out what a scam it is, they'll stop. But comprehensive methodology and tools. It's a network. All this, it's about people networking because they know there's strength in numbers. And if they get enough people together, they know that people won't lose their nerve and back down.
Yes, no doubt about it. And also, if you get a strength of numbers, it makes it harder and harder to fight.
Right.
There's so many people a part of it.
Absolutely.
It's difficult to fight. And, we've seen ICLEI, getting back to just ICLEI in particular, we've seen them work in conjunction with our Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Yes.
American Planning Association.
Yep.
So on and so forth.
Yeah.
Who else now?
Who else are they working with? They're in with the Department of Energy.
Maybe they can clean up 3 Mile Island. How about we?
Well, that's a good place to start. They have been involved with the EPA. They have been involved with. Where is it here? You've heard the term resilient cities, and that was something I said we'd come back to. I mean, that is something that the resilient cities was a term that was prepared for basically for a city to be able to recover from any shock or stress, maintaining its essential functions and structure and identity in the face of continual change. Well, it's just called being prepared. The Boy Scouts were doing it before ICLEI. It's emergency preparedness is all it is. And if you're a city that's worth your salt, you have emergency plans. I mean, granted, if you're in New Orleans and you're, Ray Nagin, you might not have a plan for
school bus Nagin.
You might not have a plan, but then, you should. And I think that any city council worth its weight in it plans for those kinds of things. What are the potential, natural disasters that we can have here? What are the potential non-natural disasters? A water pipe breaks under the street, or what are we going to do in those situations? And I think just about any city tackles those things that at least a city with any decent amount of government does. But I think also, as a human being, as an individual, you have to plan for that stuff. I mean, you can't wait for your city council to make those kinds of plans. You as an individual, okay, I'm living in California. They have wildfires a lot. I better have an exit route. I live in Florida. Yeah, we see our share of hurricanes. I better know how to get out of here. Those are things that as an individual that you should do. But as far as using methods of sustainability to try and combat climate change, to make your city more resilient, there's something about it that it doesn't seem authentic to me, Andrew. It seems like it's just another ploy to bring people in. Oh, you guys need to beware of any danger that could happen. And
no. It's using that as an excuse.
Exactly.
It's scaring you into thinking you've got to do something because this is what could happen. We're all going to boil to death, so you better cut your greenhouse gases.
Right.
Whatever that is. I mean, we couldn't live without carbon.
Oh, of course not.
Carbon couldn't. We wouldn't have plants without carbon. Wouldn't have trees without carbon. The idea that carbon is a toxin, of course, too much of anything is. But I mean,
right.
The idea that can be classified as some sort of, I don't know how it's classified. I don't know the word I'm looking for. But the idea that somehow is, something that we have to go out and get rid of is an impossibility.
Right. And so to come up with these resilient strategies, they worked with one of our favorite groups, the National League of Cities, to come up with the resilient cities. And so that's...
But it's all more of the same. It's all we need to get out of your car and into public transit. We need to live in a... There's other people trying to restrict how many feet a lot can be, and you see that in a lot of cities trying to restrict lot size.
Right, and that's the
why
thing.
do you need more than that to live?
You mentioned the APA, the American Planning Association, and National League of Cities, and there's a number of these groups that directly influence the comprehensive plans that come down through the National League of Cities, to your state's League of Cities, to regional government, to counties, to your city. It's just affected that way. So you've got groups like ICLEI that are coming up with these crazy off-the-wall things that end up in your comp plans, and you have to wonder why. I live in a town of 300 people, like Orr, Minnesota, or whatever, and I have to be worried about mixed-use development.
Yeah, or car-free living.
Car-free living. That's where it comes from.
It's mind-boggling, and the livability. You keep hearing, you'll hear that word a lot. I guess one city is livable, another city is unlivable. I don't know how. Smart growth is a great. Urban sprawl is a term you hear. Preventing urban sprawl, keeping people compacted in one area or another, and restricting. Where you take away somebody's car. I've said this before. It's like stealing somebody's horse 150 years ago. You've in effect limited almost anything they can do, from a job to a place to get groceries, to a place to go out to eat, to a place to go have a beer, to a place to to a park they can go to, whatever. You've severely limited their ability to do anything independently.
Right.
So, I mean, again, it's the same agenda. You might see it worded differently and all that kind of stuff, but it's the same thing we've been talking about show after show after show, that the overall agenda is very simple: to get you into higher density housing, take away your car, or get you out of it, or get X number of people out of it. And that is being used as an excuse, and the environment is being used as the culprit. That the way you are living is killing all of us, which of course is laughable.
Right.
It's a joke. I mean, There's more people on this earth living longer than ever before.
Yes.
When people are dropping dead on Highway 94, I'll believe that we're killing people, and that's
right.
I mean, it's nonsense.
It is, but we can't ignore that all these big groups have their talons stuck into what we do at a local level, and they do it through mandating things, and they do it through their special groups. I mean, even HUD, got into the action, and they have this whole document that ICLEI created for them. It's on HUD's website, and it talks about creating a sustainability plan, and climate action plans, and that it's good to have both, and that you should decide what goes in the plan. They tell you, here's what you need to put in the plan. I mean, it's limiting CO2, it's setting goals and timelines. It's making sure that you're putting things into facts and charts and figures, because you want to make sure that people think you look smart.
Same thing over and over and over.
It is, and they use the same charts, and they use the same facts, and they recycle the same things. And even here it talks about using lessons from New York City in creating your own plan. And it's like, well, really, Mayor Minnesota should be using New York City as... Yeah,
there's more people in New York City than in Minnesota, North, South Dakota, Nebraska combined. So how can we use New York City as... They would even work in Minneapolis.
Right. Well, nobody works in Minneapolis.
Well,
no, that's a joke, Minneapolis. That's...
I know a couple dozen. But, also it's leaked into building new buildings. I mean, big buildings. The Green Buildings Council is another. They've developed something, that's an NGO. Mm-hmm. They've developed something called LEED standards, LEED. I can't recall what that stands for. It doesn't matter. But they are getting voluntary. Some cities have adopted that they cannot build a public building unless it qualifies to LEED standards. One of them is here in Minnesota, Target Field. Yeah. Is built toward LEED standards, LEED, one of the reasons that made it more expensive, I might add, that they complied in Minneapolis and complied with all of these international standards put together by who the hell knows who. But that is a LEED-specified arena or stadium, whatever you want to call it.
There's a number of buildings in downtown like that. If you're to kind of take a walk around downtown, they usually have it in frosted white on their big glass doors. You'll see that, LEED, and it just means, that they're giving into that.
They joined the club. The world, it stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. Sorry, I had to look it up. It was discovered by the United States Green Building Council. The United States has its own building council. Of course, it's begun at the UN and so on and so forth. So, I mean, it's infiltrating everywhere. And I don't know exactly what the standards are. I'm sure it's got something to do with their energy or where they get it from or something else. And I'll tell you what's really appalling. What's appalling also is this is also being used as a way to combat war and defense spending.
Which has... You were mentioning you had seen an interview
with just a nutcase. This guy is so out there. Man's name's David Cadman. Now, Cadman. Now, who is he? Well, he was a politician in Canada. He's a Green Party, left-wing, whatever you want to call him. And he was in British Columbia, Vancouver. He became the president. I don't know who elected him. I don't know how he got this gig. He must have lost, and then he's probably making more money doing this, like a lot of ex-politicians. They go into something. He was the chairman or the president of ICLEI for about 8 years or so. Participated in Rio Plus 20. Oh, that's right, the conspiracy on Rio, which Agenda 21 never exists, but they get together every 5 years to talk about it.
And they have Twitter accounts for each one. So just saying.
But it doesn't exist,
right.
Remember.
I think I'll have to tweet something out from them right now just so everybody can see that.
He gave an interview that I watched on YouTube today, Jay. And I'll tell you, it was tough to listen to. It was really tough. And he talked about, now, ICLEI, what they did at Rio Plus 20 that is so, I think, scary to me, is they took the 3 groups and combined them under ICLEI's jurisdiction. One of them is called Mayors for Peace, which, again, is not what a mayor is supposed to do, but...
Well, we don't want,
mayors for war, I guess we don't want.
We really don't. I mean, you could have one city taking over another. It'd be terrible bloodshed.
Yeah, there are these people who think that if you just say peace enough times, it's going to happen.
Right.
Which is...
Or they just use it because it sounds good and they're trying to get a reaction.
Yeah, probably. Or get a vote. Then the World Mayors Council for Climate Change. Oh, I thought it was global warming.
Are they for climate change or against climate change? By that name, it sounds like they're in favor of it.
Yeah.
I assume they're not, though.
You stumped me on that. And let me tell you a couple things that they came out of this. These are brilliant minds, folks. Remember, we're told these are the smartest people. These people in Western Europe and these intellectual people who do nothing but work for the government their whole life, and we're told how smart they are. They called for a 10% reduction in military spending in 1 year. Okay? And shifting those resources to fight, quote-unquote, climate change. Now, stop for a minute. Whether you think the military is spending too much, that's really not the issue. My question is, how about they go into North Korea and demand that the North Koreans spend less on their military and more on environmental sustainability? Then I'm all fine with cutting military spending. Okay?
Yeah.
Till I see them or Iran or a country like that cut down on their military spending. Now look, if you want to say we spend too much on the military here, fine, you're entitled to that. Right. I think you may have a case in some respects. I'm not one who wants to police the world. That's just my personal view. Call me whatever you want. But it's irresponsible to call on... there's no mayors in North Korea.
No. There's. Well, I guess I can't verify that.
I guess I can't either. But
possibly. But if there are, I mean, they all answer to one.
Yeah. Why don't you call on China to, shift 10%? There's 20% of the world's population. You think they do some polluting over there?
Yeah, they probably do a little bit.
And of course, weapons. Making weapons only benefits the large businesses and corporations. Well, Jason, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Who benefits? Who is pushing green energy and profiting off green energy? You know what the answer is? Corporations.
Yes.
General Electric pays less in taxes in a year than I do. Mm-hmm. Because they are getting all this green stuff is being funded with your tax dollars. Now, somebody tell me, if you're against corporations profiting, okay, why aren't you consistent? If that were an oil company getting all those subsidies, people like David Cadman, you'd have to hold them back.
Right.
But if they're doing what he wants, then corporate welfare is okay.
Right.
So, I mean, these people have no credit. It's laughable. I found myself... I can understand road rage, hockey rage, golf rage. I can understand it after listening to this guy speak. Now, this loon is not there anymore, and it's some other guy from South Korea. Who cares? Doesn't matter. But these same things are being pushed, and I guarantee you that, like we've talked about before, no matter where the hell you live, policies like this are being pushed down on you.
Yeah. It's the truth.
So how do we fight these guys? Now some people are starting to fight.
Right.
Alabama passed a law that they can't participate in these groups like this anymore. Some states have condemned these groups without passing a law saying you can't join them. And I say, this is just me, cities joining groups like this is a violation of our Constitution.
I would agree with that.
Because they can't enter into foreign treaties.
Right.
And I think changing the way we live is very much an equivalent to a foreign treaty.
Right. And the people are going to say, well, no treaty was ratified. And when you're at the local level, you don't ratify a treaty. I mean, that's not obviously because it's illegal, but B, I mean, is it, if something's kind of nefarious or it's at least controversial, do you pass a treaty or do you just kind of agree with a wink and a nod, and which really is worse? Obviously a treaty is binding, but we can't do that at the local level, so you have an agreement with a wink and a nod, and you put it in, and people don't know you're putting it in because there's really no paper trail. You see the ordinances, the things of that nature being put in, but you really don't have anything to go on, especially, if your city is a member of ICLEI, you maybe have a little more to go on. If it's not, just remember, it's the national cities groups, it's the American Planning Association, and they're affecting your comprehensive plans, and so by default, because your city is a group of Minnesota League of Cities, you are getting information, your planners, because they belong to the American Planning Association.
So then let me rephrase this.
Yes.
The United States has entered a treaty.
Right.
We have, but we didn't.
We did, but we didn't, yeah.
So this is talk about an end run. We talk about Tobacco 21 going around the ledge. This is like World 21. How appropriate.
Right.
That's, again, to me, if the United States Congress passed a law passed laws to do everything that these foreign groups want to do, I'm convinced there'd be an uprising. I mean, there'd probably be a coup that happened.
Yeah.
But when it's done by outside groups who've had their experts learn what words people respond to, and their focus groups and their think tanks, and they got pretty colors, and frame it all with the environment, because that gets everybody to start crying for the porcupine caribou who are out there, humping telephone poles, or the minnows in some lake that are supposedly endangered, or whatever, the polar bears on an iceberg.
Right.
There's enough suckers there, and there's enough people who look the other way, that they can get their agenda. And look, this is relentless. These people there's no off season. There's no, there's no break. And the amount of money and the amount of groups who do this are it's immense.
You bring up a good point.
You mean every point I brought up hasn't been good?
Well, yeah.
That's what I'm here for.
But we've been discussing those points. This is a different point. That a lot of times, a lot of the people that believe the same way we do, they work hard for a couple of months. Election happens. I can exhale and take some time off, and I'll think about it when the next election comes up. But all the meanwhile, these groups, they don't take a day off. Election is November 6th this year. I guarantee you, November 7th, they're still at work.
Yeah. Well, because one election result doesn't stop what they're doing.
Or complete what they're doing.
And if they don't win at the election, they go to a place like the Met Council.
Right.
They go to a place like Mado.
Yeah.
They do something like that. They go to your city employees and get them to some conference somewhere. And it's important to remember when we talk about things like the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Department of Energy, a lot of people will respond, as I've had people respond to me, well, President Trump is there. Can't he just get rid of who's there? And it's no. They appoint the heads of these departments.
Right.
They don't hire and fire everybody. You got career people there, people who, by the way, don't want the president to succeed. Mm-hmm. And so,
I mean, that was a lot of, at the beginning of his administration, that was a lot of, like, these leaks and stuff. They weren't coming from heads of departments.
No.
And they don't go in and do a sweep of a department, but, people there that are from the same party, from the opposing party, that could be anarchists, that whatever, are working there, and you have to figure out how, as a head of that department, to bring the people that work for you into agreement, or you have to let them go.
Yeah, and I mean, President Bush faced that. President Reagan faced that. Anybody who wants to come in and make a lot of changes faces not just opposition in Congress or something like that. They face opposition from the institutional folks in Washington who've made their living making some department as big and as all-encompassing as you can. You could argue the EPA is one of the most... You talk about an organization that does things without law approval. Mm-hmm. The EPA has to be up there so high.
Right.
Probably, I would say the Department of Energy has done nothing since 3 Mile Island but blow my tax dollars. But, EPA is making new restrictions and regulations every day. I mean, what the heck?
Right.
And they're doing that regardless of who is president, regardless of who... Of course, Congress has a role to play there.
Yes, they do.
And I don't know why the bully pulpit is not used there. The president does to a point, but because the president doesn't control the purse strings, it's a little different of a role to play.
Right. And this is the thing about groups like ICLEI. ICLEI specifically, that there are a number of Republicans that are against ICLEI, but there are also a segment of Democrats that are against ICLEI. You'll see it, Democrats against ICLEI. And so this is a bipartisan issue. This is a place where you should be able to win on an issue like this.
I think it's hard for those Democrats, though.
I think it is, too.
Because the Democrats... There used to be a segment of Democrats that did not buy. I think pretty much Democrats, by and large, have all bought into the climate hysteria.
Right.
It's hard to find them. You may find them in West Virginia or Pennsylvania, but I think it's more because of the economies of those states. You might find some in northern Minnesota.
And they exist, yeah. Some of them are more those types, the blue-collar types. I think you're also going to find some where they're the blue dog type Democrats.
I think they're conflicted a lot.
Yeah.
I think they believe in climate change, but they also understand that we can't go back to the horse and buggy.
Right.
And I think they struggle. I think they, in particular, struggle to find a middle ground somewhere because the militant environmentalists you're never going to make happy.
Right.
And ultimately, the free market capitalists who don't want you to restrict mining, for example, or want reasonable restrictions, I think they try to find a middle ground, and I think they're on an island a lot. Right. I mean, I've said this before. The more somebody like Betsy Hodges becomes the face of the Democrats, the harder and harder it is to be a Democrat in a place up in northern Minnesota or in, a mining town in Pennsylvania. I mean, it becomes more and more of a, and you're right. I think there are some who may believe in larger government, but may still believe that our Constitution is actually relevant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true.
So, but I think they are cowed into silence a lot. And I think that what we need is more of those folks to be courageous and forget party lines for a minute. And that's one of the great things about local government is there's no majority leader threatening to take away your committee assignment if you vote for something. There's nobody saying, look, I'm not going to fund your water project in your district if you vote for this. It just heightens even more what we've talked about day after day, week after week. About local government is where those folks. That's where the Democrat from West Virginia and the Republican from Wyoming can come together and shake hands.
Yes.
So there's my I will shake hands. I will shake as a man who I consider myself a constitutionally minded conservative with some libertarian in me. If I were to describe myself, I'm a little bit of all three. Okay? And I will shake hands with the most biggest tax and spend person on the face of the earth. Okay, not Ed Schultz. But I mean, I'll shake hands with, to come together for local governments not being pressed to do things like this.
Right.
I will take that over almost anything. I mean, even, fine. You want to spend some silly welfare stuff? Okay, whatever. My tax dollars get wasted anyway. If you'll oppose ICLEI, and you'll oppose the Met Council, and you will oppose forcing me out of my car and into my bike in the middle of January, I can find common ground with that person.
Yes.
So,
absolutely.
I throw out the challenge there. I know you liberals listen to us all the time. Judging by the numbers, you're listening.
We hear about it.
Yeah, so, I mean, but that's a challenge. We can argue about a sidewalk all day long at City Hall. What I don't want is some NGO somewhere pushing us to make a sidewalk. That's not why we should make one.
No.
We should make one because there's a need for one and because the residents want it or they want to pay for it and maintain it. That's why we should have a sidewalk. And I think it's as simple as that.
It is.
So why is this so damn complex?
Because people want to have power. That's why. People try
We've let government become so big. We've let non-governmental agencies write public policy. We've let lobbying become. I mean, if you got rid of lobbyists, do you know what would happen to the unemployment rate in this country?
It would decrease.
I mean, it'd be unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's become. But why do we have lobbyists? We have lobbyists because government's so large.
Right.
So if we cut government and restore our freedom, then we cut the number of people who can influence government. Right. So that might be the quote of the day right there.
That might be if we had a quote of the day segment, that might be it.
And that was almost two quotes.
That was.
Well, that's something else.
Take one and save it for next time.
Now that Bobby Heenan's passed away, I can be the brain now. I'm the brain.
Is that how it works?
That's right. All the humanoids and.
Oh boy.
No, I'll stop there.
Oh boy. Anyways, ICLEI. Local governments for sustainability. It's no good.
It should be local governments for giving people strokes or something. That's what I think it does.
If your city is a part of this, you need to get out of it. It's that simple. Take over your city council and get out. We realize Minneapolis, St. Paul, Duluth, they're lost causes. Rochester, maybe you stand a chance. If you're listening to us in another state, by all means, get your city council taken care of and get out of ICLEI. Otherwise,
and I might add, all of the policies like complete streets, sustainable.
Right.
Read your comp plan and see how many times the word sustainable is mentioned.
Yeah.
Your city did not come up with that.
Yep, and that's my other point is that if you're not in ICLEI, you don't have membership in ICLEI as a city, you're still being affected in your comp plan because your city almost absolutely belongs to the Minnesota League of Cities. The Met Council or MADO is forcing you to do a lot of this stuff. So you guys need to put your heads together and think about what is within your ability to be able to do, what is within your ability to not agree to. Now, granted, like Andrew said, people in your city want a sidewalk, you put in a sidewalk. I mean, that you do what the citizens, the residents want. You don't do what some outside group tells you to do.
What a novel concept, actually listen to the people who you represent.
Yeah. Instead of representing somebody else.
Yeah, what would somebody like Thomas Jefferson, how would he react to seeing something like this happen? Or Calvin Coolidge, or one of our favorites.
Yeah.
And some of the most underrated presidents like William Howard Taft.
Absolutely.
Like that.
Absolutely.
How would they react to an NGO coming in telling a city how to build a street or how to build a building?
Coolidge was a mayor. I mean, he would understand this stuff.
Right.
I mean, Coolidge, granted, it was in Massachusetts, but it was a different time, after...
And a governor. He was a governor.
Right, he was a governor as well. And so he would have had a really good grasp over this stuff. And I think that we need to get back to that. Again, it goes to how we always harp on: don't go for the top seats. You don't go for the brass ring right away. You start at the bottom, you work your way up, you get experience, you learn, and part of it is, this is why we need good people in those seats to oppose things like ICLEI, to fight the Met Council on things like transit-oriented development, to fight them on.
And here's the thing too: if you want change, if you want the legislature to go in and restrict the Met Council or we talked to Jeff Johnson, one of our previous shows, about this. Wouldn't it be great to take like 50 mayors down to the Capitol who are all opposed? You wouldn't like to clone Mark Corrin or Jim Adams 50 times?
That would be great.
But we don't really have that. What we really have is a handful of people who are trying to do that, and everybody else is either in bed with their agenda or not speaking up.
Yeah.
Or maybe they don't quite subscribe to it, but they're not doing anything about it.
Right.
But I think the legislature, I think both parties, and I've said this before, outstate Minnesota should be wildly opposed to the Met Council because of all the state money that gets transferred from because the state funds part of the Met Council.
Right.
So you're living in Pequot Lakes or in Bacchus, Minnesota. Your tax dollars are being taken, and you'll never... Not that you'd want it, but you'll never see it.
Right.
So I think that a group of conservatives and outstate Republicans and Democrats could get together. I think you could get a 2/3 majority to go over any governor if you had sensible legislation to do that. But it's going to take a local voice to get to not just activists. You've got activists and people. You got people inside and outside government.
Yes.
Who are going to get this done. And that's really what we need to hear. We need to, when there's a bill that wants to restrict the Met Council, I want 100 mayors and city council people there, county commissioners there, supporting those bills. And I'm going to tell you, I bet you get different results if you have something like that. If you've got three of them sitting, strength in numbers, like you said at the beginning. So that's really what we need. That's another reason. As if we haven't talked about enough reasons all year on this program to get elected locally and do these things. And we definitely can make change, but I'll tell you what, like you said, it does not start with the governor election. That's maybe the hardest part of somebody's mentality to change. We've had a Republican governor. Did the Met Council go away?
No, it got stronger.
Yeah, so why does anybody think electing a Republican governor is the solution to this? Maybe it's part of it.
It has to be part of it.
Yeah, but
a Republican governor is going to have to, approve a bill from the legislature that decreases the powers of the Met Council. You got to have it. But
or enough votes need to be there to be overridden.
Right.
To have a veto overridden. But as we've seen the current governor do, I guess you can just decide you're not going to spend money and take that to court, which is not the place to solve this either.
No, it's not. But you bring in a good good point.
Another good point?
Yes.
I make a second good point?
This is unreal. This is like history happening in our midst. That why don't we, as cities, all these corporations have lobbyists, and we talked about the horrors of lobbying. Why don't some of you that are in cities, running cities, and you don't like this stuff, draft a bill, work with your legislatures. Now, granted, in Crystal, that's not going to happen because you have, the Three Stooges over there.
Yeah, and but two people who are, don't know what day it is.
Yeah, exactly. But as we start to get control of things, I would like to see cities start to draft legislation and work with their legislators to be able to get it through committee and passed.
I'll take it a step further.
Yeah.
Why don't we have the coalition of, municipal, metropolitan municipalities, the coalition of Northwest Mayors Association? How about we get an association of people opposed to the Met Council?
There we go.
How about get that? Let's get that.
Yeah.
A coalition for Met Council reform, or whatever you want to call it.
Coalition of metro cities against the Met Council.
Yeah, you'd have to come up with something so the acronym is catchy.
Right.
But I mean, we have all these groups for other purposes. Why don't we have a purpose for that?
Yeah.
Let's get that together.
I like that. I like your thinking.
So do I.
Yeah. Oh, my word.
I feel like I have two brilliant minds.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Anyways, so there's a whole bunch of, we're about solutions. We are Community Solutions, Minnesota. There's some solutions right there that you guys can bank for later. I'll tell you what. That's some good stuff. That's gold. If you thought everything else in this podcast was a bunch of conspiratorial crap, you can take what we just said in the last 5 minutes and you can bank on that for the future. I'm telling you, Minnesota. Wow, ICLEI and the APA and National League of Cities and HUD and Department of Energy, and they're all in it together.
Yeah, all one group pretty much.
And it affects how you live your life every day. It affects the money being spent. It affects your property tax statements. Believe it, Minnesota. So as you see these things pop up in your city, and you see these environmental ordinances come up that don't make sense for the size city you're in, for the place that you're in, water management plans where you might have a couple of brooks but you don't have a big lake, or the things that seem out of place, where they came from, and we want to hear about them, Minnesota. We want you to email us. We want you to get a hold of us. Not only in those instances, you want to step in, you want to step up, you want to form a group that podcasts and blogs like we do, you want to run for something, you want to put the infrastructure into place that's going to allow candidates with common sense to win. That's why we're here. We provide this service to you guys, free podcasts, just blogging all the time, sharing our information of 9 years with you. And we also want to come and we want to train you guys, and we want to speak to you, and we want you to learn how to do what we've done in Crystal all over the state, and it can be done. Email us, commsolutionsmn@gmail.com, commsolutions@gmail.com, the aforementioned blog, commsolutions.mn.com, and please, if you like what you hear, share the podcast, because that is your opportunity to be a hero to somebody else in your community. They can hear what we're saying, they can realize it for themselves, and they can put it into action. That makes you look like the hero.
Yeah, and if you're sitting around waiting for somebody wondering, okay, who's going to do it in my neighborhood? Here's my question to you.
Yeah.
Why not you?
Absolutely. And maybe you don't want to run for something, but you can do something.
Yeah, you can do something like what we do. That's what you can do.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
On that note, Minnesota, it's getting late. We're going to retire. Not permanently, but just
1 week retirement.
1 week retirement from the podcast. But you will hear a new one coming up very soon. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be good. We love you, Minnesota. Now it's your turn to get to work.